The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Hello, listeners! I'm so grateful for the listener interest over the last few years, and I want to keep this podcast inspiring to you with my amazing goddess guests and to amplify the voice of the divine feminine in the world today. This podcast takes time, effort, and resources to share with you every few weeks. I have an ask of you. One of the ways to support the Oracle of Luna podcast is to become a subscriber to premium and bonus material. Each of the podcast episodes have 2 links at the bottom. It's quick and easy, should probably take you 1 minute, and for as little as $3 a month, you can support the show and become a subscriber. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot. Thank you, and blessed be. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today I am beyond thrilled to chat with my guest, Deborah Blake. Deborah is the author of 18 books on modern witchcraft, including the Eclectic Witch's Book of Shadows, A Year and a Day of Everyday Magic, and the Everyday Witch's Coven, as well as the acclaimed Everyday Witch Tarot and Oracle and Everyday Witches Familiars Oracle decks. She has also written 3 paranormal, romance, and urban fantasy series, as well as a cozy mystery series about a rundown pet rescue. Deborah lives in a 130-year-old farmhouse in upstate New York with numerous cats. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so want to mention to our listeners, Deborah's going to stay tuned to the end because Deborah's going to give us a short, grounding, everyday magic short meditation at the very end for quieting. So stay tuned for that. So let's get rolling here. Are you ready?
I am.
How's your day going?
It's been a little hectic, actually. It's been kind of crazy. The whole 130-year-old farmhouse thing, that means there's always things being done around here. So, and there was water pouring into the basement because we had a lot of rain. So that was fun. And then I went to the dump because I am that glamorous a witch.
Yay! Adventures at the dump. That sounds good. It's a hot day here in Las Vegas, so I plan on going for a swim after this. So that's my day.
That sounds like fun. I could have done that in my basement.
I want to just kind of get rolling here. How I usually start my show is I ask how everybody has started their spiritual journey. And so, Deborah, how did your spiritual journey with the divine feminine and witchcraft begin? Can you tell us?
It was actually sort of accidental, not accidental. I had a friend who kept inviting me to come do things at her house with a bunch of other people. And I kept saying no, because that sounded a little weird. And I don't like people. I mean, I like people one at a time. I don't like the people I don't know. And finally, on one Samhain, she said, "Oh, I'm just having a few people over. We're going to do a ritual. We're going to have a feast. It's going to be great." And I went, "Okay, fine." And I went over, and her idea of a few people was like 30 in a tiny apartment. We had a lovely feast, and then we went outside into the park next to her apartment and cast a circle, and everything changed because I could reach out and say, "Hello, is anybody there?" And somebody actually answered.
Who answered?
Oh, God and Goddess. And they basically said, "Well, what took you so long?"
Yeah.
I mean, I was in my mid 30s, I think, at that point, and I'd been searching. I grew up Jewish and I love the heritage. I love being a Jew, but the religion didn't do much for me. Very, you know,
Yeah.
male oriented, yada, yada, yada. And I tried the Unitarians for a while and they were lovely, but not what I was looking for. And I studied Buddhism for quite a long time and it was wonderful, but it was missing something. And so, yeah, that day in my very first circle on Samhain, I figured out what that something was and never turned back.
Excellent. Well, at that point, did you begin your own circle or coven, or did you go back to
No,
that
I actually
coven?
the woman who invited me, she ran what she originally called a study group. She didn't call it a coven, and it was open to anybody who was interested. And basically, they studied witchcraft, and so I started going to that. Um, it was literally like I think every Thursday night, and we do full moon on the Thursday night that was closest to whenever we were there, and we would do the holidays that were closest to the whatever Thursday. And I studied with her for, I guess, 5 years. And it did eventually become an actual coven and became sort of more limited in who got to come and what, therefore we got to do more intense stuff. And after about 5 years, I said to her, I feel like I'm ready to take the next step. And she had come from a pretty traditional Wiccan background. So some of her teaching was Wiccan, some of it wasn't. But, we didn't do like the levels, but she did say, okay, if you want to become a high priestess, we're going to have you study for a year and a day. And she gave
Mhm.
me books to read. And, I started leading some of the rituals, including some public ones. Like we did a public ritual for Yule every year. And that was fun. That was like 60 people. And, at the end of the year and a day, nothing happened. And still nothing happened. And I finally sort of figured out that she really didn't want another high priestess.
Yeah.
And which, it's okay. And then she got a boyfriend who didn't like me, and the group dynamic just sort of
Yeah.
was not working. So
Yeah.
at that point I went out, I did my own dedication with a couple of friends, one of whom was a witch and one of whom was just sort of spiritual. And then I waited 9 months until the pieces sort of fell into place. And then I started Blue Moon Circle, which is my coven, which that was 2004, spring equinox of 2004. And that group still exists.
Oh, that's great. 20 all
Yeah.
for 20
And in,
years. That's
in
great.
many of the books that I've written about talk of there, a lot of them are based on the activities that we do
Yeah.
together. Um, and the things that I've learned, by being a high priestess, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So it sounds like you knew that you're a witch kind of in your 30s, probably after college. Did you go to college and
Oh,
study?
I went to college, and yeah, I mean, I think I graduated from college when I was like 23, 24 or something. So it was quite a while after that.
Yeah.
I'm sort of a late bloomer.
Yeah.
When I looked back on it later, what I tell people is I've always been a witch. I just didn't know there was a name for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I always was attracted to nature and loved herbs and gardening. And I was a psychic even as a small kid, which is very confusing to say the least. Um, people are like, why were you listening to my conversation in the other room? I'm like, I wasn't, I swear. I just know you said that. Um,
And
so,
who's your
yeah, I mean,
imaginary friend?
exactly. So yeah, I've always been a witch. It was not until I met this woman, and it was
Yeah.
really funny because I had another friend that I went to after that first ritual, and I was all excited, and she was a witch, and I said, "Guess what? Guess what? I'm a witch." And she said, "Yeah, I know." And I went, "What do you mean you know?" And she said, "Yeah, I've known for ages." And I went, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" And she said, "Because you weren't ready yet. And when you were ready, you were going to find out for yourself."
As we always do. We always find
Yep.
out when the timing is right, right?
Exactly. There, if she had told me, I probably would have just gone,
Right.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
So, when did you begin to connect with the power of words and writing? Were you always
Well,
a writer,
I
or?
mean, I've always been a writer. I mean, I think I wrote my first quote unquote novel in sixth grade in the back of math class when I was supposed to be learning, I don't know, math, um, which probably explains why my math skills are not so good. Um, and my intention had always been to write fiction. I mean, I wrote short stories. I started many, many novels, never finished any. Um, and after my group and I had been practicing together for a year, uh, I was in the shower one day, which is where all the ideas come to you, um, and I was thinking about the fact that somebody had said to me relatively recently, because we invited other witches we knew to come to our rituals. It wasn't just our little group, so we do full moons ourselves and then do the holidays with
Oh,
local
yeah.
other folks we
Oh,
knew.
oh, it's open. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Which we don't do anymore, but we did in the beginning. And, people were always saying to me, oh, you write the best rituals, you write the best spells.
Hmm.
And I said to somebody, oh, well, it's not hard. Anybody can do it. And they looked at me and they went, no, everybody can't do that. And I was thinking about that and I thought, I really wish that when I had started this coven a year ago, that there had been a book
Right.
that
Yeah.
basically had a year and a day worth of full moons and new moons and Sabbats and some suggestions for how to start a coven and run a coven and like a list of, etiquette for when you're in circles that you could hand out to people and, some correspondences and all that stuff.
Like a manual, kind of. Yeah.
Basically, yeah, it's like here's a year and a day of running a coven, and since there wasn't one, I wrote it. Yeah.
Ah,
So
I
that
see.
is, and I was not at the time intending to have a nonfiction writing career. I wrote, the first 50 pages of the book and sent it to Llewelyn along with an outline and things, which that's the way you have to do that. And um they said yes, please, we'll take it. And that was how I met Alicia Gallo, who is the
Hmm.
editor I still work with, who I love and adore.
She's been on the
um
show. Hmm.
oh, has she? That's, oh,
Yes,
I'll have to go
last
back and
year.
listen to that. Yeah, no, and we've now been working together.
Yeah.
Let's see, I sent her that manuscript in 2005. The book came out in 2007. So yeah, I've been working with her since 2005, which is, holy crap, that's 20 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Look, I can do math.
That's
Oh
a
no. Um,
20 years.
but yeah, I better send her a card. It's like, I mean, I don't remember exactly when in 2005 it was. I could probably find a email or something somewhere.
But
But
that's great. I
um,
mean, that sort of answers my next question. I mean, you were inspired to write this book. Uh,
basically, I believe that the gods told me to do it. This book flowed so smoothly when I was writing it, and it was just, the whole thing was just a gift. Basically, I wrote it much faster than I have written any book since then, and it really was. It was a great experience. And yeah, then I started thinking, well, that was kind of cool. I wonder if I have any more ideas.
yeah.
And it sort of turned out I did. And I so love working with Alicia and with Llewelyn. Only one of the nonfiction books that I've ever written was with somebody else. And it was not a great experience. And I went right back to Llewelyn. I
Yeah.
mean, they were nice.
They really guide and support
It's a
authors.
fabulous bunch of people. I mean,
Yeah.
literally from, the people in the warehouse up to, Bill, who is the publisher. There, I have never in all my years of working with them met one person who wasn't wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great bunch of people. They all, do their best to support the authors. They are, now that I've done a bunch of fiction books, with other publishers, I've discovered that that level of support for the author does not exist in larger
Mm-mm.
organizations.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
And so the
So
Everyday Witch Tarot and Everyday Witch's familiar oracle decks, what inspired you to write these decks and collaborate with the amazing illustrator
oh,
Elizabeth Alba? How did that
Elizabeth
happen?
is the most amazing illustrator. People
Yeah.
always say, "Oh, did you do the illustrations for your tarot deck?" And I'm like, "No, nobody wants stick figure witches." What happened was, it was actually sort of interesting because I was probably on like book number sixth or something by then. And I had also started publishing novels. So I was pretty busy.
Yeah.
And I got an email from Barbara Moore, who is the in charge of the tarot department there, and who also has many wonderful tarot decks of her own. And she said, we were inspired by the last book you did. We liked the way your conversational tone. Would you be interested in writing a tarot deck? And at first I thought, oh God, I'm too busy. And then I took a couple days and went, I'd get to have my own tarot deck. What am I thinking? Of course I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
And what they said was, we have four people that we haven't used yet for illustration, but who've been on our radar. We're going to send you links to their websites, and you will get to tell us which one you like the most. It is not necessarily a guarantee that we'll be able to sign that person or that we agree, but we are happy with all four of these. So I went and looked at Elizabeth Alba's website and fell madly in love with her art. I mean, you've seen it. It's
Oh yeah, I love
incredible.
it. And
And I
I'm following her on Instagram now, and
oh,
I'm
yeah,
loving every single post she posts.
yeah, no, she is, and interestingly enough, she is not a witch.
Oh,
Obviously very open-minded. I know you'd think she was, but
yeah.
she's not. She's just cool as anything and so talented. And
Yes.
I saw her art and I literally did not look at the other three. I wrote Barbara back and I said, please, 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 can you get this woman? And, at that point, we had, no communication with each other at all. And thankfully, she said yes, and the rest is history. But what happened was, we worked so well together on the Everyday Witch Tarot, which has proven to be incredibly, incredibly popular, for
Yes.
which we are very grateful. But even now, I mean, that came out, I think it was like 2017, and it's people still are discovering it. And I get emails all the time saying, I really wanted to learn tarot, but I couldn't connect with the Rider Waite, which was, that was the deck I used for years before I had this, because I am a professional tarot reader too. In fact, Barbara said, do you know much about the tarot, and are you familiar with the Rider Waite deck? And I went, yes, actually. I've been reading cards professionally for 20 years. And she went, yay.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so,
important for to
oh, yeah,
have that, right?
it
Experience.
is helpful. It's,
Hmm.
Elizabeth was not familiar with the tarot, but she, looked everything up and studied it, and we plotted and planned. And, for that first deck, I basically wrote out like all of obviously my book that comes with the cards, but I also wrote out descriptions of what I wanted the cards to look like.
Mm.
And so it was basically my vision, the artwork
Yeah.
beautifully.
Yeah.
And
You gave her
when,
direction, it sounds like.
right. And when we decided that we'd had so much fun working on that together, a few years later, when we both had a little bit more time, we decided to do the Everyday Witch Oracle. And for that one, she had more scope. I mean, I would give her the basic idea of like, the card, and then she would come up with an image and we'd go back and forth about it.
Mm. So she was
Um
able to start interpreting your direction much quicker,
right.
and yeah.
And I learned to trust her because everything she did was wonderful. And we also worked so well together, which is a really rare thing. you
Yeah.
know, we have literally, I mean, we had the Familiars deck came out last year. I think it was last year. It's all blurring together. Was it earlier this year? I don't even know. Yeah, no, it was a year ago because she just posted. She just posted online that it came out a year ago this
Okay.
week, and I was like, wait, what? It wasn't it like 2 days ago? I don't know. But yeah, we decided that at that point she had done a tarot deck with somebody else, and we really missed working together. So we were like, well, what haven't we done? What can we do now? And she
Hmm.
was in the mood to do animals. She was tired of doing people.
Yeah.
So and familiars, well, that you can't go wrong. And what we decided we wanted to do was not just like household animals for familiars. I mean, there is a cat, there is a dog, there's some
Hmm.
birds and things, but we wanted basically the spirit energy of a bunch of different animals. And we wanted to do what we had done with our first oracle, which was divided into earth, air, fire, and water sections, 40 cards in both the oracle decks. Except with this one, we set aside 4 cards to be spirit, and we
Hmm.
use mythological creatures like the dragon, which is my favorite. I love dragons, and the
The
phoenix.
Phoenix.
And
Hmm.
and with that one, I still wrote the book, and we spent, oh God, it took us probably months of going back and forth and saying, okay, which animals do we want to use? And,
Yeah.
are these
Right.
ones too close to those ones? And, you know, okay, we have 8 for fire. We need one more. What can we do? So
Yeah.
there was a
So you
lot
had
of
to
behind.
organize it. Yeah. It
Yeah.
sounds.
But it
Yeah.
was, in this case, it was very much a equal collaboration. It was not me saying, okay, I'm going to write this. We figured
Yeah.
out the animals together first, and then I wrote things. And she basically said, would you mind if I just did the pictures and did the basic sketches? And if I show them to you and there's something that's not right, I'll change it. And I said, sure, less work for
Yeah.
me.
Run with
Hey,
it, right?
yeah. Well, and she'd earned that right. I mean,
Yes.
she absolutely had proven that she could do these decks.
Yeah.
And if
I
it made
just
it
pulled a
more,
card this morning and it was the Raven.
oh, I love the Raven. That's one of
So
my
beautiful.
favorites.
Her
Yeah,
work
I
is
have
beautiful.
the,
To all our listeners, Elizabeth
oh,
Alba.
yeah,
Check
no,
her
her
out.
her
Yeah.
work is stunning. And I will say, Llewelyn also did a fabulous job with the box that it's in,
Yeah.
the way they did the illustration of the card, but this like framework. We
Yeah.
were so pleased with the way this deck turned out. And now we are working on a second tarot deck,
Ooh, so we'll get to
which
that
is
towards the end about your future
okay.
plans. But I did want to kind of fit in before we run out of time. Can you give us any suggestions to our listeners about how we can connect with our own everyday magic wherever we live, whatever our spiritual backgrounds are? I mean, some of us live in apartments or urban settings or desert or on a boat. I mean, can you
Right.
suggest some simple ways that anybody can do
Oh,
everyday magic
absolutely.
here and now?
I mean, that is sort of the theme of many of my books. It's that whole
Yes.
idea of being an everyday witch. And I have 2 specific books that go into lots of detail if people are interested. One was The Goddesses in the Details, which was the third book I wrote and probably a lot of people's favorite still. And then Everyday Witchcraft. And they were both about how you integrate your spiritual life with your everyday life. Because most of us don't have an hour a day to do
Right.
ritual. We
And
may
then
not
some of
have
us
that,
really only have
but
a part of a corner of a room to do all this.
exactly. So, what I tell people is figure out what you're doing in your life anyway. Are you taking a walk? Well, if you're taking a walk, connect with nature, because for me, that connection with nature is a big part of what it means to be a witch. So rather than just putting your headphones on and listening to an audiobook, although you can do that sometimes, I'm big on books. Listen to the birds, watch for omens. I mean, there was one day I was having a really tough day, and there was a heron just sitting on a rock in the creek that I walked past, and it lifted my spirits. So
Yeah.
be aware, connect with the natural world. If you like to cook, kitchen witchery is the simplest, way to integrate magic in with what you're already cooking. You got to eat, and
Mm-hmm.
some days you got to eat takeout, but if you're making, say, soup and you're feeling like maybe you're coming down with a cold, add some healing herbs and the intention, because witchcraft is all about intention,
All about intention.
intention and focus.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're adding things to whatever it is you're making, you can think about the fact that you're imbuing it with healing energy, and you're using
Yes.
maybe some rosemary, which is healing, and
Yes.
extra garlic, because extra garlic's always good. So yeah, that
Or
is
even lighting a candle. Simple,
absolutely. You can
right?
light a candle, you can say a little prayer over it, you can, ask the gods to bless it for you. You can have salt that you keep in your kitchen that is blessed and consecrated on your altar, that you only use when you're doing kitchen magic, and otherwise you just use regular salt.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just use regular salt. There's one of the things I always say, there is no wrong way to do it. I mean, unless you're hurting yourself or somebody else, basically, whatever works for you is your kind of everyday witchcraft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we can also just stop, listen, ground ourselves, and do what feels like right at the time, whether we're in an urban setting or out in nature, or in the kitchen or wherever at work, even, right?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you live in an apartment, you can have a couple of herbs in pots on the windowsill. I mean,
Hmm.
unless you have cats that
Yeah.
eat herbs
And
on the pots in the
crystals.
windowsill.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, crystals. And one of the things I love about things like herbs and crystals is, if you're not out of the broom closet yet, and not everybody is, or if you share your home with somebody who's not super comfortable with witchcraft, which not everybody is, you can have things like crystals and herbs. They don't shout witch. They may shout like new age or likes to cook or grow things, but nobody looks at crystals and goes, "Ooh, she's a witch." They're just a bunch of rocks.
Hmm.
So you can have, in some of my books, I actually talk about ways to have an altar out in like full view that uses just everyday things so that it doesn't look like an altar. It just looks like
Yeah.
a decorative
And,
thing.
and they can be portable. You can
Oh yeah,
build them up, take them
absolutely.
down, depending on the moon or your time limitations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think which book. I think it was either Llewelyn's little book of witchcraft or Llewelyn's little book of spellcraft, because I wrote them sort of one right after another. They're really cute little sort of hardcover books in this, obviously the Llewelyn little book of series. But those are the two I wrote.
Okay.
And I can't remember which one of it was. I actually have a whole chapter on altars. You know,
Great.
how to use them, how to, do one that's subtle. So yeah,
Portable. Yeah,
it's
temporary. Hmm.
right, portable, temporary, permanent.
Hmm.
You can also, if you want to be really sneaky, if say you've got a throw rug that you've got in the middle of the living room, you can turn it upside down, draw a pentacle on the underneath, turn it back over, and nobody knows that that is a place where you can do magic except you.
Aha, it's imbued with magic.
That's right. And you can stand on top of that rug and do, your
Yeah,
prayers or your grounding. And unless somebody happens to pick it up and look underneath, how are they going to know?
exactly. So, do you have any upcoming plans for the future, such as new books, events, classes, workshops?
I do actually give monthly online classes. People can go to my website, and there's usually a link there. And also, I talk about it on Instagram and all those other places. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I talk about it there too. But yeah, I've been doing online witchcraft classes for almost a year, I guess, since last fall.
Oh,
And people, yeah, they're different topics every time. Like I did Intro to Tarot. This month, I'm doing, well, I think by the time this comes out, it'll probably be past, but I'm doing Books of Shadows. I think next month,
Ooh,
July, is going to probably be protection magic or kitchen witchery. But
okay.
yeah, I do them through Zoom. They're relatively inexpensive. So yeah, that's a fun thing. And people can follow me online if they have questions. I do
Yeah.
have a Patreon, which, means that they can, join at different levels and get different things. And I'm actually discussing doing an online coven through my Patreon because people have said to me they're having a hard time finding a coven if they don't live near one.
Yeah.
So my next book that is coming out, I think, is January of 26, and that is the Everyday Witches Book of Deities, which is going to be
Mm.
talking about gods and
Oh,
goddesses.
I love it.
Oh yeah, no, that one I actually had to do a bunch of research to write it. It was hard. So everybody better buy that one. And then the new Whimsy Woods tarot that we're working on right now will be out in 2027 because tarot takes a really long
Yeah.
time. I mean,
Yeah.
Elizabeth has to paint 78 original paintings
Oh my gosh.
plus the back,
That's
plus the,
that's a
the,
lot.
the, the card back. So yeah, it is a lot. But yeah, so that's basically,
Okay, cool.
everything on the plate right now.
And how can people find you? What is your website and your social media?
Okay, my website has links to all the social media, so if people
Okay.
don't want to go looking around, they can go there. And that is deborahblakeauthor.com. Very imaginative. And they just, as long as they can spell Deborah, Deborah, the long biblical way, deborahblakeauthor.com, they can get the links to everything there. And they can also,
Perfect.
like, all the books are up there, so they, if they're interested in what I've written, they can, like, go look those up. And I usually have announcements if there's anything like new coming up, that sort of thing. I
Okay.
am on Instagram as Deborah Blake Author. I'm on Facebook as Deborah Blake. I'm still on Twitter as Deborah Blake. There's four of us left there. Yeah.
All righty. So you are out there, and our listeners can go check out your website and go to your social media and find out all about your books and magical offerings. So I want to give you a few minutes here at the end to take it away with your grounding meditation.
Okay, this is from A Year and a Day of Everyday Magic, Witchify Your Life with a Daily Dose of Magic. That was the most recent book that came out. Um, and so if you were looking for this in the book, it's on January 16th, but of course you could use it anytime you want. Um, and this is basically just a short meditation for quiet and peace. You can, read it to yourself silently or out loud, or even record it for the moments when you don't have the focus. And I
Perfect.
always suggest that people start by taking 3 slow, deep breaths. So if you're listening to this now, 3 slow, deep breaths. The world is loud, but inside my heart and spirit, there is quiet. Hidden beneath the noise and bustle, there is a core of calm I can tap into whenever I need it. As I breathe in, I reach inward and touch that silence. As I breathe out, I let go of the tension and stress. I am quiet. I am peaceful. I am calm. I am quiet. I am peaceful. I am calm. At the center of my universe, I can reach inward, and there is always a quiet place. And I can take that quiet and calm back with me into the world, and it will sustain me.
Oh, beautiful. Blessed be. Thank you so much. And thank you for inspiring us to make everyday magic easy and accessible to all of us and creating your amazing tarot and oracle decks with Elizabeth Alba. We all need a little magic in our life. So thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Until next time. Bye bye.